Okay, so we're going to talk about our application. Well, in a lot of third world countries, there is quite a problem for export, which eventually causes financial problems for the government or the inhabitants, because the government can't really provide any resources or can't help the inhabitants with financially, for example. And there's also not really that much of external help from first world countries. There are a lot of problems which cause like not really that much export from third world countries. So we provided an actual solution for that. We made a web application. It is quite a simple solution, but it's pretty big. It is a low-cost solution because we use data buffers, so we don't really need that much of a big server or a huge database. Well, we do need a huge database eventually, but not for the main time. The main target of this application is to find actual companies that you will find useful to export to. It is also made to be a social media platform. Something like Facebook or Twitter or Reddit and so on. Okay, so as you can see, we have the dashboard here. In this dashboard, we have a Facebook post system. You can actually post a lot of stuff. So about contracts that are released or new updates about your company, just to attract new customers, for example. It is possible for your entire company to edit a message or to delete a message. So an actual post. So that's quite basic. You will only see posts from followed companies. So there we have a tab where you can follow or unfollow companies. So based on that, you will see their post. On the left side of this dashboard, you can see recommended companies. This will have a limit of only 3 companies because of design actually. But what it does is it looks for some companies that have the same export as you do. I'm going to talk about that later about export, how you can select it and all. Yeah, that's basically how our dashboard works. Next up, user settings. So you can actually update personal information. So first name, last name, job, email address, and biography. It's not that much, but it's really something, and it can be really important. You can actually create a new password. We also included 2-factor authentication. What that means is that when you log in, you have to use Google Authenticator, which is an app on your phone, to log in just for extra security. And of course, you can delete your account, which is a hard delete, which will actually delete your account. All right, our products. Well, there are a lot of export products, and I've listed a couple of them right here. If you can find it, you can actually add your own. You can delete it, but they are all unique, and we've created a script which makes it actually unique in the database. And because of these exports that you can actually select, you get recommendations on the dashboard. So based on these products that you select, that you actually export or import, you will actually get recommendations. So that's about our products. All right, employees. You can actually add employees to your existing company. It's really simple, actually. You just provide the email address of the employee you want to add, and you give him or her a role, which can be administrator, so they can do this actually the same thing as you, the owner of the company, minus a couple of important things. And then you have an editor, which can just use post, but can't follow companies or unfollow companies. That's only something an administrator or the owner of the company can do. We use email service. Okay, and the resources we used are Laravel. Laravel is a framework from PHP, which basically means it is an extension to make it easier for us to program. PHP, yeah, it's a language we actually use. Not much to say about that. Then we have Composer, which is a package manager, just to import or export packages. Then we use MySQL, that's our database. We use Livewire. Livewire is also a framework in PHP. And then we have the dependencies, because why would you reinvent the wheel?
For this project, we used the Raspberry Pi. This is a single-board computer created by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. It started as a cheap computer to teach people how to program, but it had many more uses. In our case, we used it as a server for our application. Our Raspberry Pi is a Model 3B. This is a part of the third generation of the Raspberry Pi family. This model is faster than the older models and it supports Bluetooth and wireless networking, which was very helpful for testing. On the Raspberry Pi, we used a special operating system called Raspberry Pi OS. The operating system is based on Debian, which is a distribution of Linux. The Raspberry Pi OS is made specifically for the Raspberry Pi and is easy to install and use. We had to install a couple of different things to make our project work with the Raspberry Pi. To make the website accessible from other computers, we used a bundle of programs named Apache 2. The web page is made in PHP. This does not run natively on the Raspberry Pi, so we had to install it ourselves. And finally, we installed a program named Composer. This is a PHP package manager that we used for creating the web pages. How the Raspberry Pi works. Here I have a quick and simple overview of how it works when someone wants to reach our web page. When someone tries to reach our web page on a computer, they have to type our URL. An example of an URL is www.google.com. Our URL leads to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi forwards the connection to Apache 2, which loads the PHP file and, if needed, the other files, and sends these back to the user on the computer. The user now has access to our web page.